Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Now we're going to move ahead to part 2 in this series on installing a decoder in these little locomotives, these small Bachmann 060 type locomotives. And I've already shown you how to take it apart, how to get the shell apart, and now I want to show you how to prepare a space for it somewhere in the shell, and how to wire the decoder and the speaker and the keep alive so that this will run great. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So what you get then is, once this weight is out of the way, there is plenty of room in here to install your decoder and your speaker and your keep alive, all within the confines of these tanks located on each side of the locomotive boiler itself. So the next step then is preparing the locomotive for installing the decoder. And what I do then is, to make room and to preserve some weight, I'm going to go ahead and chop this off here. And I've already got another one that I've already done. This is a 6400 class, and you can see, if you look down in here, I think I can get it. Yeah, there you go. You can see where I've cut off the end of this U-shaped weight and installed it back in here. Okay, so that gives me some weight up front. Then the rest of it, I have these two pieces of leftover weight that I can use. Okay, so what I've done here is I took the weight out to my garden, and using a Dremel tool, I've already cut through about halfway through on each side of the weight here. And I found that that's all it takes. You don't have to cut all the way through. These things, they do get hot as you're cutting them, so having some cold water around, a hose, which is why I did it out in my garden. And as soon as it got hot, I turned the hose on and blasted it. And so that cools it off fairly well. And then you can go ahead and grasp it with your pliers and just give it a pull. And usually that is enough to break it loose. Okay, so in this particular case, the right-hand red pickup is on the left side and vice versa. So always check. Make sure that you've got things properly set up. Don't assume that the Chinese are following any wiring convention when they put these things together, because they don't, as you can see. Now, here you can see that we do have the two wire leads. I've checked. This one is the positive and this is the negative lead. So at least we got that much. And the easy way to check this is to get yourself a 9-volt battery and just touch it to the wires. And if the wheels go forward, then you know which way you've got it set up based on the polarity of the contacts on the battery itself. So that'll tell you right off how to wire this up. Okay, so the first thing I want to do then, now that we've got the weight carved down and we're ready to reinstall things. So to hold the weight in place, I'm going to use a piece of 3M double-sided tape. You can see it right here, good old Scotch double-sided tape. And I'm going to put a little bit on the back side of the weight itself and drop it into place in the front of the boiler casting, just behind that smoke box door. So let me ease it into place here carefully so I don't break anything. Okay, there they are. Okay, so see if I can show you that. It's tucked down in there, out of the way, and we've got that amount of weight back in the front end of the locomotive at least. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and prepare the decoder and everything else to go in here. So let me show you that. Okay, so here we are with a locomotive shell, and the weight has been installed back up in the front here. So let's go ahead. What I want to do first is make some measurements. I'm going to set this up. Now what I'm using is a Soundtrack's Economy decoder. It's the UK Steam version, and they just happen to have a GWR 262 locomotive recording on here. So it's got the appropriate whistles and other sounds. And I have listened to tons of the videos, or watched tons of videos of the South Devon Heritage Railway and also on the Severn Valley Heritage Railway with locomotives like these operating. And to be honest with you, I can't tell the difference between an 060 and a 262. And the important thing is, I can get an economy decoder here in the States for about half of what it would cost me to get a Loc Sound decoder or a Zemo decoder from one of the British DCC suppliers that is appropriate for the exact locomotive. So, this one was about $65. It would cost me probably $150 almost to get the British produced version once, I take into account the exchange rate and shipping and everything. So it's economically sound. I'm perfectly happy with it. They sound the same to me. It's up to you to check it out yourself. And you can still get these easily in the UK. What I want to do is make some measurements here. I'm going to set this up so that I've got my speaker wires up front running to the speaker. Okay. And for the speaker, I'm going to be using this TCS Sugar Cube speaker. I'm sure you can find a similar one that will fit. And I'll put the TCS number for these. I don't know if there are any any companies in the UK that sell TCS products, but I'm sure that any of the ones on eBay and the like will be happy to ship these to you. And you can buy these directly from TCS on their website. Okay, so that's ready to go in. So I just need to make the measurements here and here so that I get a good fit across the face of the locomotive, okay, once I install these. And then the other thing that I'm going to use is this TCS KA1. So you can see this KA1, this is a Keep Alive. It's, about as long, almost as long as the decoder, but somewhat smaller. And on these, the two wires that you need are the blue wire and the green and yellow wire on the economy. So on these, what we're going to want to do, we will connect the blue wire to the blue wire and the green and yellow wire on the decoder to the black and white wire on the Keep Alive. So I'm going to measure these all out and make the connections and do the soldering off the video because it will take a long time for me to do this on the video. And it'll take a much shorter time if I can just do it on the workbench. Okay, as you can see here, I've gone ahead and soldered the economy decoder, the Keep Alive, and the speaker together. So now I'm going to start inserting them into the cavity here within the boiler. So I'm going to start with the decoder itself, and we're going to slide it down in here and right into place. Now what I've done, forgot to mention, I went ahead and installed another piece of that double stick 3M tape on the backside of each one of these components. So when they slide into the cavity there, they're going to be stuck in place. So now let's go ahead and we'll do the speaker. I added a second layer of tape to the speaker. So let's see how that goes in there this time. Much easier. That's good. So the last thing we have to put into place here is the Keep Alive. So let's go ahead and let me get some other wires out of the way so I can space it properly. Okay. Now, so I'm just going to have it tucked right in there out of the way as well. Okay. Now, what we have left are the orange, red, black, and gray wires to be installed. Okay, so you can see we've got everything installed now. We've got the decoder, we have the speaker, and then right behind that we have the TCS Keep Alive. So that's going to prevent any dirty track or dead spots on those Pico insel frogs from stalling our locomotive. So what I've got to do next, I'm going to take this back over to my workbench, and I'm going to make the connections between the track pickups and everything else on the chassis that needs to be done, because I've got the red and the black go to the track pickups, the gray and the orange, of course, go to the motor leads, and that's it. And the rest gets tucked out of the way on top of the motor itself, so that we don't have anything getting pulled down into the gears. So let me go ahead and do that. So now you can see we've got everything hooked up carefully here. Decoder, speaker, keep alive down here. Got all my little wires tucked away. They're going to be tucked up further back up this way once I install it. And then the motor connections and the pickup connections. Remember, these things are reversed. So let me go ahead. The eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that I've now switched to a different chassis. So this is a 2-for-1 installation. This is a 6400 series locomotive. The other one was, I believe, a 5700 that I was working with. They're identical for all intents and purposes. And I just switched because I already had this chassis set up and ready to go. So made it a little bit faster along the way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop it together, and I'm going to do that on the workbench because it's a little bit fiddly trying to get these wires in here. And once I get it in, I'll show you how to put it all back together, and we'll be off and running. Okay, here's the locomotive. I've already put it back together. I put the cut down pieces of the weights back into the remainder of the space on the tank, and we came out pretty close to the original weight, so that's pretty good. So I also have gone ahead and I placed it on the programming track and checked it to make sure, you know, that there weren't any shorts, and I reprogrammed the address. So I'm going to put the couplers on it right here, and let me get this one. Okay, so that's ready to go on the track. So let me go ahead now. I'll put it on the track and we'll get set up to do a sound test for you. That pretty much wraps up this installation video on how to install sound and DCC and a speaker and keep alive and everything in this little locomotive. And it runs beautifully. I was really surprised when I put the decoder in here and got it running, how well it does operate and the nice sound that you get out. The next time you're looking at some small locomotive to use for your switching operations on your layout, don't overlook the fact that you can probably install a sound decoder, a keep alive, and a speaker all in some hidden place in a small locomotive like this. Where there's a will, there's a way, so give it a try, guys.